A very good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and you are just in time for the Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I am your Ambassador, Susan Nganga. To our first story, for many refugees in camps in northern Kenya, the dream of resettlement to third countries like the US and Germany is fading. Restrictions on global migrations are on the rise, while funding to crowded camps are declining. Here are the details.
The hope of refugees living in northern Kenyan camps of resettlement to safer countries like the United States and Germany is growing more distant. Germany recently suspended its refugee resettlement program, affecting hundreds who are already approved to travel. Meanwhile, the US has paused all new refugee admissions under its program following a policy shift earlier this year. As more countries tighten migration rules, fewer refugees are being offered the chance to start new lives abroad. At the same time, conditions within the camps are deteriorating due to major funding cuts. The World Food Programme has reduced food rations to less than half of the minimum nutritional requirement, with many families receiving just a few kilos of rice and lentils each month. Humanitarian agencies have been forced to scale back on education and healthcare services, leading to school closures, understaffed clinics, and growing hardships for the more than 800,000 refugees in the country. In response, the Kenyan government launched the Shirika Plan, an ambitious effort to transform refugee camps into integrated settlements that provide long-term opportunities. However, the plan faces serious challenges without increased international funding. Officials warn that unless donor countries step up support, both humanitarian relief and long-term solutions will remain out of reach, leaving refugees trapped in worsening conditions with nowhere else to go to. Beatrice Wangoi, The Ambassador News.
While still in Kenya but on the business sector, Kenya is urging small businesses to tap into the growing trade and investment potential of the Horn of Africa. Speaking at the 2025 Global Somali Entrepreneurial Forum in Nairobi, Principal Secretary for MSME's Development, Honorable Susan Mangeni, called for stronger regional economic cooperation and highlighted untapped opportunities under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Here are the details. Now, we'll bring you that story shortly after. Now, we shift the focus to Nigeria, where another deadly attack has rocked Nigeria's troubled northwest. In Zamfara state, gunmen struck a rural community, killing at least 9 and abducting many more, possibly over 100. It's the latest in a series of violent raids that have left families shattered and communities living in fear. Here is more on the attack and growing insecurity gripping the region in Nigeria.
At least 9 people are dead following a violent armed attack in Zamfara state, northwestern Nigeria. Locals report that between 15 and over 100 people were abducted as gunmen stormed the area in yet another wave of violence. These attacks have become painfully common, turning everyday life into a struggle for survival. The pattern is all too familiar, with gunmen storming rural villages, schools and farms, leaving devastation in their wake. In 2021, more than 300 schoolgirls were taken from their classrooms in a similar raid in Zamfara, later released after ransom payments. The victims are part of a growing list of Nigerians caught in the crossfire of a security crisis that has plagued both the northwest and central regions of the country. Despite ongoing efforts by Nigeria's military and security forces, the violence persists. Counter-attacks and security operations are regularly launched, but have struggled to stem the tide of abductions and killings. For many in Zamfara and beyond, the fear of violence is a deadly reality as the country grapples with restoring peace to its troubled heartlands. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
Now back to our earlier story where Kenya is urging small businesses to tap into the growing trade and investment potential of the Horn of Africa. Speaking at the 2025 Global Somali Entrepreneurial Forum in Nairobi, Principal Secretary for MSME Development, Honorable Susan Mangeni, called for stronger regional economic cooperation and highlighted untapped opportunities under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Here, Susan Mangeni, the Principal Secretary of the State Department for MSMEs Development, called on small and medium enterprises to actively pursue untapped business opportunities across the Horn of African region. Her remarks were delivered during the Global Somali Entrepreneur Forum 2025, which was held in Nairobi. Honorable Mangeni advocated for enhanced economic diplomacy among neighboring countries, emphasizing that collaboration, not competition, will unlock the region's economic potential.
The issue of market, and I believe from where I sit, that the best and the most significant form of diplomacy is economic diplomacy. Many of these other things that we sit on the table and discuss counts nothing if you cannot feel as equal partners on the table. And the only thing that makes two countries to sit together is the exchangeables, is the threats that happen in between. This is what can address even the conflict that more than often we see in our region. Because if we can trade, you have something to lose, you'll have something to lose. There is no way you're going to fight your neighbor, because you know so.
Present an underutilized opportunity, often constrained by factors such as inadequate trade financing, fragmented payment system, and poor infrastructure.
We need to start having African homegrown institutions that will come up with African financial system, for example. Because a lot of time, and not just to the Christian Africans, but everybody else who is in this space, we have opportunities under the AfCFTA today, which is heavily underutilized. Last year, we adopted the AfCFTA Secretariat, finalized on the protocol of youth and women in trade. But I can bet you that very few young people and women are maximizing that opportunity because of lack of trade financing. The other issue there is payment system and all those other infrastructure. It takes you more than 70 days to take your goods, let's say to Nigeria, when in Europe, it will take you less than a month. I'm sure it could even worse for us to take things to Somalia here because of this infrastructure.
The forum sought to harness the Horn of Africa's business potential by convening entrepreneurs, business leaders, investors, policymakers, and Somali diaspora. And now that story brings us to a very fast break here at The Ambassador. We'll be right back with even more as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. See you then.
So today's topic is Rising Stars, young people who create, influence, and inspire. So
on an honest note, creating is hard work, and there are people who I see their work and they're constantly pushing themselves. Like wanajipush, kujipush, like they're putting creativity up top over there.
I think no one also prepares you for the fact that the better you become.
Networking is also very good. You see, there are people who have passion for, videography, creating videos, editing. There are people passionate about that. If you are someone who talks and you meet people and you love people, you'll definitely meet someone who's just waiting to shoot you.
But also in terms of what I put out, it goes back to what are your values? What are your values? What are your beliefs? So as much as this is trending, yes, that is trending. Does it align with your values? Does it align with your beliefs?
You can be a star without the star position.
Kwa hivyo,
Si lazima ukue hapo mbele ya watu. Si lazima wewe ndo ukue star, ndo ukue star. Hata ukiwa hapa chini, wewe bado ni star. And as she has said, discipline is a big thing.
Remove my skin and I won't cry. But you might. What am I? Are you still practicing art ukifanya your engineering? Umezimix ama umeenda tu fully on art? Sasa najua, hebu kwanza tutajia, because najua huwezi taja wote. Just some of the people wenye, some of the celebs wenye umeweza ku reveal your art to them.
J. Kroba, bibi yake. Hiyo siku walifurahia mbaya. Na mimi nilikuwa emotional mbaya sana.
Lilia.
Go and check that video, guys. Nililia mbaya.
I was seeing kuna place ulikuwa unasema like Biendo alikusaidia sana in building your career. Unaweza tuambie hiyo moment venye ilikuanga?
We.
Hello, my name is Nyabio. I'm from Mahanim. Call this school a good school because the second my mom saw it, she saw it was Christian based. And when I see Christian based, that's what the character my mother wants for me. And I like the sports that we play for PE. Like sometimes we play table tennis, we can play football, we match, and on Fridays we have games. And we verse the teachers in football. And this is why I think the school is the best school your children can go to.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. Now we shift the focus to the Middle East, where recent sectarian clashes in Syria's Soida province have resulted in significant brutality and displacement, with first-hand accounts from civilians revealing the intense violence and fear experienced by those forced to flee. Fighting between Druze militias and Saudi Bedouin clans, compounded by government and foreign military involvement, has plunged the area into one of Syria's deadly escalation since the downfall of Bashar al-Assad. Over 128,000 people have been displaced from Soida province due to the latest wave of violence. According to the UN Migration Agency, estimates of fatalities vary, but reports indicate that hundreds to over 1,000 people have been killed during the clashes. Countless families have sought refuge in rural areas, neighboring governorates, or even found friends and relatives. Civilians describe bullets striking their homes, leaving them with no option but to escape with their children, fearing for their lives. Reports of extrajudicial killings, kidnapping, destruction or looting of homes have surfaced, carried out by various functions including local militias, government-affiliated fighters and tribal groups.
ولا والله من دحين ما ضروا حدا، لا هذول ضرونا ولا هذول ضرونا، أما خايفين من ولادنا أطفال جهال، الرصاص قام يجي على البيوت، وجينا اللي جاي نزحنا ترى هناك. أيوة.
طلع من هناك من الضرب، وناس تأتلت هناك وما حسنوا يجيبوهم، وناس أتلوا بها ما خلوا شيء. أي شيء سووا ما جماعة لا يخافوا الله ولا يرجعوا فيه. طلعنا هناك من خايفين لحالنا وعلى أولادنا وعلى بناتنا، والله ما بي أي شيء الحمد لله. هذا الوضع ايش صاير بينا. شوفت هناك المنظر والمكان شلون الوضع. مي هلا ما في البيت.
Now, still in the Middle East, Gaza saw its deadliest day yet for aid seekers in over 21 months of war, as at least 85 Palestinians were killed while trying to reach food on Sunday. The Territory Health Ministry said there was a new alarm as Israel military issued evacuation orders for parts of central Gaza, one of the few areas where it has rarely operated ground troops and where many international organizations are trying to distribute aid. One group reported that several officers were instructed to evacuate immediately, as Davis Karani now reports.
The largest death toll was in a devastated northern Gaza, where living conditions are especially dire. At least 79 Palestinians were killed while trying to reach aid, entering through Zikim crossing with Israel. Zaha Al-Wahid, as head of Health Ministry Records Department, states the UN World Food Programme said 25 trucks with aid had entered for starving communities when it encountered massive crowds.
اليوم بتفاجئ الصبح إلا القصف في كل مكان، إلا بنزلوا مناشير، بنطلع إلا أخلاء. طب أنت خان يونس كلها هياتها أخلاء، والمواصي ما فيها أي مكان أساساً تكفي لأهل خان يونس، ورفح كلها أخلاء، وأنت الحين بتحدد نص الدير أخلاء. طب وين نخلي؟
A UN official speaking on the conditions of anonymity because they were not allowed to comment on the incident to the media, said Israeli forces opened fire towards the crowds who tried to take food from the convoy.
The situation here is absolutely dire, and my team said to me today the situation in Gaza has never been this bad. They are desperately hungry. Children are crying all the time for food, and my team, who are employed, they have money in their bank accounts, they're unable to find food in Gaza to buy. So the situation is absolutely terrible, and people are making impossible choices to risk their lives to try and find food. We're in Deir al-Balah, and today there was evacuation notices across Deir al-Balah affecting between 50 and 80,000 people are now being forcibly displaced from Deir al-Balah.
Taken by the UN and shared with the media, the video showed Palestinian men running as automatic gunfire were heard. Leo has also intervened, urging for the creation of a peace deal between Israel and Palestine, stating on the importance of peace, especially after a footage of Israeli forces opening firearms towards the crowd was shared to the media.
Esprimo il mio profondo dolore per l'attacco dell'esercito israeliano contro la parrocchia cattolica della Sacra Famiglia in Gaza City. Chiedo nuovamente che si fermi subito la barbarie della guerra. E che si raggiunga una risoluzione pacifica del conflitto.
Davis Karani for GBS News.
Still in the Middle East, with Gaza's water and sanitation system disseminated by months of war and Israel continue to block fuel and infrastructure repairs, clean water is in short supply for over 2 million displaced Palestinians. Let's have a look at how the state is currently in Gaza.
أشخاص لما يكون عندهم قلنين ما بكفيهم 3 أيام.
معاناة المية كثير صعبة، مش بس علينا، وبتقعد بال4 أيام وال5 أيام فعليا مش لاقيين هالمية. الأطفال الدنيا شوب، الدنيا حر، بدهم يتحمموا، بدنا نغسل لهم، هم اصلا هدمتين، هدنا نغسلها وهد ما لابسينها، فبدنا نضطر نجيب مية عشان نغسلها برضه مش متوفر.
بنحاول قدر المستطاع انه نخدم ناس كثير في النقله، بنقسمها على 3 مخيمات، مخيمين. اوقات النقله بننزلها في مكان واحد على هوا ضغط الناس. فالامور الناس الوضع صعب عندها، فلا في براميل ولا في اي حاجه الناس تقدر تستخدمها، المي مالحه مش موجوده، فالناس قد ما يقدروا بياخذوا ميه بيستخدموها للغسيل وللاكل وللشرب ولكل شيء.
We'll keep you updated on that issue as it develops in the Middle East. Now we shift the focus back to Africa, where Zambia's former president Edgar Lungu has not been buried almost 2 months since his death. A dispute between the family and the government of Zambia has ended up in court battle in South Africa. This has caused more disunity in Zambia. Lungu supporters feeling disappointed. Let's take a listen.
Twists and turns of the former Zambian president barrel court battle remain unresolved. The late Edgar Lungu's wife, Esther Lungu, recently softened her stance, choosing peace over bitterness, extending an olive branch to President Hakainde Hichilema to attend the barrel, sentiments that were echoed by many Zambian citizens. Esther, the former First Lady of Zambia, says this will help bring peace, healing and reconciliation in Zambia. Zambia is now in the international spotlight as the Gauteng court in South Africa is expected to deliver a ruling on the case next month. Meanwhile, a coalition of South African civil society group has called on the South African government to clarify reports that the late Lungu was admitted at a South African hospital under a false name.
Well, we'll keep him updated on the first president's story as it develops. That's all for today here at The Ambassador. Thank you for joining us as we uncover the latest developments. We'll continue to bring you these updates and more as they develop. Remember, this is The Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I have been your Ambassador, Susan Nganga. Have a good and blessed afternoon. See you tomorrow.